Entire civilization will be wiped out tonight. That's how this latest phase of the conflict is being framed. Not cautiously, not diplomatically, but in absolute, almost apocalyptic terms. And as that deadline approached, events on the ground were already moving. Reports indicated strikes around Iran's Kharg Island, one of its most critical oil hubs, often described as the backbone of its crude exports. So this isn't just rhetoric, there is real escalation underway. But at the same time, what's unfolding is not just military, it's layered and increasingly difficult to read in a straight line. Because alongside these strikes, there's a flood of messaging. On one end, direct threats of destruction. On the other, statements that sound almost transactional. At one point, the framing shifts to something very different. That the winner takes the spoils, even references to oil, with remarks suggesting a business-first mindset. So what is this? Is it war rhetoric, negotiation pressure, or something in between? At the same time, there are unusual signals coming from the region. Israel issues advisories warning people inside Iran to avoid trains for a specific window of time, something that feels less like a conventional warning and more like anticipation of possible strikes. Put all of this together and it creates a kind of overload. Threats, deadlines, deals, advisories. Not all of it is meant to inform. Some of it is meant to shape perception. Some of it is meant to create pressure and perhaps even distraction. Because in modern conflicts, messaging itself becomes part of the battlefield. And then comes Iran's response. Not with louder threats, not with matching rhetoric, but with something far more unusual. Plans for human chains around key power plants. Musicians performing outside critical infrastructure. Public messaging that millions are ready to sacrifice. On the surface, it doesn't look like a strategic move, but it is. Because this is not about countering firepower, it's about shaping the narrative of resilience. A way of saying, even if infrastructure is targeted, even if systems are hit, the response won't collapse. It shifts the focus from military assets to people, from destruction to endurance. So what you're seeing right now is not just escalation. It's two very different approaches unfolding at the same time. On one side, overwhelming force, pressure, and constant signaling. On the other, unity, symbolism, and psychological resistance. I will wipe you out versus we are ready to endure. And in between, a constant layer of messaging, threats, negotiations, warnings, all blending into one. Which makes the situation harder to read, but also more revealing. Because this may not be a conflict decided purely by firepower. It may come down to something more difficult to measure. Not just who can strike harder, but who can absorb pressure, sustain their position, and continue even when the cost keeps rising. And that's where this moment becomes significant. Because beyond the headlines, beyond the statements, this is no longer just about escalation. It's about how each side is choosing to fight it.